Welcome everybody to the spring edition of Springettsbury History Night. This plan is to offer these free events 3 times a year from 7 o'clock until 8:30 in the evening during April, July, and October. The dates for this year are shown on the screen. In July 14th, we will have John Crowmer here to share details about the archaeological digs happening at Camp Security. In October, I will be talking about the Springettsbury in the 1960s. I've done through the 1940, I did the 40s and 50s, now we're up to the 1960s. So that will be coming up the remainder of this year. Thanks to the Springettsbury Township supervisors for their support of History Nights. A little housekeeping. Please silence your phones. The restrooms are located through that door and back the hallway to your left. Other than I'll ask a question of the gathering, I'd appreciate if you'd hold your question and discussion until the end of my talk. As with all History Nights, this event is being recorded with the content viewable several weeks later as a YouTube video on the Springettsbury Township website. History Nights are a venue of the Springettsbury Township Historic Preservation Committee. Our committee was established 35 years ago by the Board of Supervisors at the time of the Springettsbury Centennial to identify historically significant structures and sites while generating interest in and documenting the township's history. Our committee consists of up to 9 members appointed by the Board of Supervisors. I'm Stephen H. Smith, the chairman of the committee, and will be presenting the program tonight. So tonight's topic is neighborhoods in southwestern Springettsbury, which will explore the history and interesting stories about East York, Fayfield, and Green Acres developments. Now, a 1947 aerial photo provides a Springettsbury Township Southwest region overview where I point out the relative locations of the 3 adjoining neighborhoods. All are located east of Mill Creek and generally extend from the Pennsylvania Railroad at the top of the aerial photo to Mount Rose Avenue at the bottom of the photo. A fence row line of trees still standing in 1947, which separated 2 large farms during the late 1800s, became the boundary between East York and Fayfield. So this boundary line here of trees you see down through there is the separation of East York and Fayfield. There is a small stream flowing from Haynes Acres that goes across this area that separates Fayfield from Green Acres. So those are the boundaries of the 3 neighborhoods that I'm talking about tonight. This photo was taken 10 years before the construction work started on ID3 bypass around York along this section of Mill Creek. Before that work started in the late 1957, neighborhood children often swam in Mill Creek. In the winter, there was ice skating on a pond at the former mill near the railroad tracks. Bicycling ranged from bicycle parades for youngsters sponsored by the Houston PTA to teens riding bikes to stores or to Melvin's Drive-In with their friends or to work there. Children were entertained by low-flying airplanes about to land or in taking off from neighboring airports. They even had the excitement of witnessing planes swooping from the sky with a tailhook to grab mail bags from goalpost-like contraptions while landing. So, without landing. So that was some of the activities in early East York Fayfield areas. Now, acknowledging some of the sources, the York County History Center, Springettsbury Township Historic Preservation Archives, the York County Recorder of Deeds, Ancestry.com, Newspapers.com, and photos and postcards submitted to me or my York's Past blog site. East York, established in 1903. The developer was John H. Longstreet. He acquired a 196-acre farm in the western part of the estate of Vincent Kesey, who lived from 1822 to 1899. The plan and lot sales were done by the Pennsylvania Real Estate Investment Company of John H. Longstreet. The features were cement sidewalks and curbs, water by the York Water Company, macadamized streets, electric lights, and a sewer system. Now, the East York lot sales began in the shaded region, as shown in the September 1903 plan of East York streets, which is the region east of Rockburn Street and north of East Market Street. So that's where the first sales were done. Now, within that region, east of Rockburn and north of East Market Street, 437 lots were laid out. In the first 10 years of sales, 123 buyers at locations indicated by the yellow diamonds purchased 168 lots. Buyers purchased the lot or occasionally adjoining lots of their choice, then hired an architect of deciding on a custom house built by a particular contractor, or a contractor building a house to an existing house plan. However, by 1920, only 8 buyers built on their lots. So there are a lot of lots sold, but they were primarily for investment purposes. It appears many of the early buyers viewed purchasing a lot as an investment, which it turned out to be because many of them were sold to other people before the houses were built. I've seen examples where a lot passed through several owners before the house being built. One of the lot buyers during the first 10 years was May 22nd, 1912, purchase of 6 adjoining lots by the Springettsbury Independent School District. John H. Longstreet sold them the lots at a 40% discount. However, after the school directors agreed to name the school after his close friend and community leader, John S. Heaston, Longstreet agreed to waive all costs. So the school got the ground for nothing. Now, the relatively modern Heaston School and the Springettsbury Independent School District exist primarily because of overcrowding at Lefever's one-room schoolhouse. Lefever's school had been in use since 1849 for schooling students in the area bounded by the present features of Mill Creek to the west, Whiteford Road to the north, generally Route 24 on the east. In terms of present roadways, Lefevre Schoolhouse was located on the east side of Haynes Road, a short distance north or a short distance south of Eastern Boulevard. During the 1910-1911 school year, 43 students were cramped into the one-room schoolhouse that had been built for 30 students. So that school population was forecast to soon eclipse 50 or 60 as the East York development was projected to have higher growth rates in the second decade. Some East York residents and occupants of homes along East Market Street, east of there, had already started taking matters into their own hands by sending their young children to city schools via the trolley. They were thus paying school taxes in Springettsbury Township School District plus tuition to the city schools. And rather than paying both, they used the courts to establish the Springettsbury Independent School District in the territory of Lefever's one-room schoolhouse. So that's the reason you have Houston two-room school to start off with, but eventually many additions were made. So that was a school from 1912 to 1978. Now, what is here now but is missing in the 1903 plan? The curved entrance in the Eastern Boulevard, or Eastern Boulevard. So that wasn't in the original plans. And the reason it wasn't in the original plans stems from, well, here's an aerial photo that shows that that's a 1930 aerial photo of East York by Carl Ort. That shows the construction of the curved Eastern Boulevard underway. There still isn't any development south of East Market Street in 1930. And there's 58 homes built in East York at that time. So Carl Ort actually, in taking his photo, he was taking a picture of his early landing field. So Carl Ort was in the aviation business before almost anybody in York County. He had a business interest in Dolphin Flying Field in Harrisburg in the early 1920s. Ort commuted to work in Harrisburg from his home at 665 West King Street in York via an airplane, as shown. He utilized the trolley between his house and East York landing field, where he parked the plane overnight, from which he flew to and from Dolphin Flying Field, which was his base of operations for early businesses in aerial photography and aerial advertising. Ort's first extended advertising tour was in the fall of 1923. That is Ort on the left, and his navigator slash marketing representative for the cigar company at the right is Ray Paris. So after that tour, Carl had several photos of his airplane taken for promotional use at his East York landing field. This site is along the south side of the 1900 block of East Market Street in Springettsbury Township. A small portion of Rockburn Street is seen at the right side. So Rockburn Street is going back up along here. These buildings can be identified because if you look at current photos, they're 1901 East Market Street and 1911 East Market Street. Now, these particular photos, the 1901 East Market Street house has a distinctive Second Empire architectural style, and records show it was the Vincent Kesey home built in 1857. That actually is from the original Kesey estate. The 1911 East Market Street lot was purchased in September of 1922 by Judge N. Sergeant Ross, and the house was built and occupied per newspaper articles in Christmas of 1923. So if you look at the house in this photo, it's still a little bit under construction, possibly getting near completion. So dating this photo to November of 1923 is a pretty good bet. So that's Ort's, that's one of the, there's a lot of aviation connections with these developments, as we'll get to later. Now, during the same year that East York was laid out, the Elmwood development was laid out on the estate of John H. Small. Elmwood was located south of East Market Street between York City limits at the left in orange and adjoined the southern part of John H. Longstreet's East York development. John H. Small's farm included land on both sides of Mill Creek. As such, several Elmwood roadways extended in the Springettsbury Township, and many of those road names carried over as the east-west avenues in Fayfield. The planned street layout of East York in Springettsbury Township and Elmwood, mostly in Spring Garden Township, were sufficiently completed early enough in 1903 such that Frederick's rows, which included them, both in the suburban developments in his 1903 map of York, Pennsylvania, and vicinity. Elmwood Avenue, and soon renamed Elmwood Boulevard, was originally planned to bridge Mill Creek and connect directly into East York's Eastern Boulevard. So essentially, the plan from the start was Elmwood to connect directly into Eastern Boulevard. And we'll get into why that didn't happen. Actually shows up even through 1954. They're still talking about connecting them. This sketch shows proposed additions to the Elmwood commercial area. It appeared in the Gazette and the Daily of December 15th, 1954. I added the red annotations per the article that went with this photo, pointing out some of the features. You had Advent Lutheran Church at 20. So this is Advent Lutheran Church here. You have Village Finance here. You have the York Bank and Trust Company here. This is where Wise Market was going to be built. You have the Melvin's Amusement Building here. You have Melvin's Drive-In here. So those are some of the properties located there. Now, the distinctive areas here, what they were doing, they were planning to build a shopping center here behind, this is the Elmwood Theater down here. They were planning to build a roadway here and then a shopping center on this land, because then the original route of Mill Creek actually went like this. After they built ID3, they basically moved it over here. Now, Mill Creek is the boundary between Springettsbury Township and Spring Garden Township. The boundary between the Elmwood property and Longstreet's property is a line going down through here like this. So part of the problem was they had to bridge Mill Creek here. Both sides of Mill Creek were in Elmwood. So Longstreet figured that I'm not paying for that bridge. Both sides are in Elmwood. You should pay for it. So that was one of the problems. But because of it's actually in two townships, so there was also a squabbling between Springettsbury Township and Spring Garden Township of the need for that bridge, because they built this Eastern Boulevard in 1930. So it's like they couldn't figure out who paid for the bridge, so it never got built. Just as good, because when ID3 came through, it would have taken it anyway. So this sign is located along East Market Street at the entrance of Eastern Boulevard. I've been asked, is this area East York or Old East York? The whole John F. Longstreet development is East York. It was that from the start up to when the National Register application went into. You didn't hear Old East York until that went through. And the reason is a section of that development was described as Old East York as the application was being prepared in 1997 for listing as a historic district in the National Register of Historic Places. So why is only a section of the development Old East York? One of the requirements is that all structures of significance must be at least 50 years old. During 1997 application, tax records were used to assure the requirement was met for most of the contributing structures, which required the proposed historic district to be delineated by structures of significance built before 1947. So that's the reason I got this 1947 aerial photo, which the people putting together the application in 1997 didn't have access to. They had access to tax records. So when they delineated what was the old part of Old East York, this is the area that they delineated per tax records, which is actually pretty close to where the 1947 buildings are located. So you see most of them are north of East Market Street. You have some sections that are built between East Market Street and Eastern Boulevard. You don't have any, well, you have one or two that might be built south of, like, yeah, this one here is south of Eastern Boulevard, and there might be one over here. So that is the area designated as Old East York in the application. So that is the section that is Old East York. The whole development, which is the blue boundaries. So these blue boundaries represent the boundaries of the whole development. So the whole development includes this. So that's the difference between East York and Old East York. Now, looking at that aerial photo, I can zoom in on certain areas. The indicated, like I said, since Easter of 1924, Sunday schools were conducted under the auspices of the York County Lutheran Conference in both East York and Elmwood public school buildings. Via contributions and loans, the combined Sunday schools acquired a portable chapel measuring 25 feet by 60 feet, and John H. Longstreet allowed it to be placed on an empty lot at the corner of East Market Street and Oxford Streets in East York. The shown house of worship was named Chapel of the Advent at its dedication during December of 1924 in honor of the season. Now, in that chapel, the Advent Lutheran Church was organized as a regular church congregation in 1926. Later that year, the lot at the corner of East Market Street and Oxford Streets was officially acquired from Longstreet, and since September 16th of 1940, ground was broken to build the present colonial-style brick church on the corner of East Market Street and Manheim Street. So basically the present church was built on this lot. When that happened, this church was torn down. It was actually bolted apart and sold to another congregation that was starting. So, and I understand that came from another, this was the second use of that. So it was like a traveling starter kit for church congregations. I found that interesting. So here's the current one. The chapel basically set on between Oxford Street and Manheim Street. So the chapel basically set in this area, and the 1940 current church is on the new property that they acquired on Manheim Street. Now, I'll continue to use sections of Carl Ort's 1930 aerial photo to introduce East York features and tales. Here I focus on the building that functioned as a residence initially and then as a clubhouse at 2025 East Market Street. In 1906 and 1907, Margaret Lang, wife of John Lang, One thing I found interesting, probably about 1/3 of all the lots sold, both for investment purposes and building purposes, were either sold to single women, a widow, or the wife only. Like he didn't have the husband's name on the deed. So I don't know if Longstreet was pushing that or that I've just found that unusual. You find that on many of the early deeds. So Margaret Lang, the wife of John Lang, purchased 6 lots, creating a mega lot at the northwest corner of East Market Street and Vernon Streets. John Lang, a retired West Virginia coal baron, had John Dempworth design the mansion, which was occupied in 1907. A 4-bay carriage house was located well back on the property. So this particular, here's the house he built, and this is the carriage house back here that emptied up onto North Vernon Street. It's now like a 4-car garage. Now, in the same block, the Longstreet Land Office sat at the northeast corner of East Market Street and Finley Streets. So this is the land office that he sold all the land lots to. His home was actually back up here on North Finley Street, just is in like a very short walking distance. So that's where he sold all the lots. Now, the land office continued to be occupied by his daughters after the death of John Longstreet in 1928. Both Mary and Anna, I think Anna went by Nancy also, they basically continued to sell lots in the 1950s. So the Longstreet family continued to sell lots in East York. Now this building here that started off as a mansion for a family then became the York Motor Club. So in 1912, the Lang Mansion became the clubhouse and headquarters of the York Motor Club. This occurred because John Lang moved his family back to West Virginia after he was appointed the commissioner of the Department of Mines in West Virginia. John Longstreet advertised all East York residents may be a member and enjoy York Motor Club privileges, which included dining room service, games, and lawn tennis. So the York Motor Club originally formed in the city during 1906. Members promoted good, safe roads, shared road trip travel ideas, provided gatherings and activities for club members. After acquiring the Lang Mansion in 1921, the club made it available for service organizations to hold their meetings and open membership to East York neighborhood. After a downturn in membership, the York Motor Club headquarters was sold in 1923 to Dr. G. Emanuel Spotts. He was one of several doctors residing in East York. Those residing in the neighborhood ranged from factory workers to craftsmen to office workers to teachers to business owners and executives to judges and congressmen. So, wide variety of residents in the East York neighborhood. Mariana Hess, again, a woman, purchased lots 1 and 2 in 1910, and a few years later added lots 3, 4, and 5 to create a mega lot. Mariana was the wife of George Hess, who operated a furniture factory and furniture dealership in York. Creating supersized lots by purchasing 1 or more adjacent lots was nothing new in the East York development. Many considered John Longstreet's lot sizes too small. For example, Longstreet's Section 2, bounded by Market Street, Russell Street, and Royal Streets, contained 23 planned lots. On those 23 planned lots, there are now 12 properties. So it averages like every property contains 2 lots that John Longstreet laid out. In 1928, a Lincoln Highway concrete marker was installed side curb of East Market Street between Russell and Loyal Streets. I suspect street widening was the reason it was removed. If anybody has a photo of that marker, please consider sharing. The Lincoln Highway Association is having their national conference in York this summer. They're trying to gather any type of photos they can, so that would be a neat addition, if anybody has it. Now, the house on that mega lot is 2301 East Market Street. It was built on lots 1 and 2 by Mr. and Mrs. Hess. It faced East Market Street. The house in 1920 was, and all five lots were sold to Ella Barrick, the wife of Dr. John Barrick. The property passed through 2 short-term owners in the early 1940s before the Pennsylvania State Police acquired its use. This was the York Barracks of the Pennsylvania State Police from September 1946 to September 1952. However, this is the only house in East York that was moved. In 1955, this house was set on wheels, turned 90 degrees clockwise, and moved to a new foundation on lots 3, 4, and 5 directly behind it. This allowed the property owner to place a commercial business on lots 1 and 2. And the reason that wasn't included in the old East York. So that you see that is out, that's a commercial property, so that they significantly changed it so it wasn't allowed in the old East York property for National Register use. But when they moved it, you have Gray's Golf Service, and you can see the building that was moved 90 degrees. That's the building that was originally on this lot. The reason they did that, Mary McIntosh, who opened between the move and the opening of this, they opened next door. And they wanted a back entrance off of Royal Street. So the back entrance ran right behind the gas station and between the house and the gas station. There was a back entrance to Mary McIntosh. They required that the township required a back entrance, so they had to do all that finagling there to get the back entrance. Now, this is a block between Keasley and Finley Streets. In the spring edition of the Township News, it included a photo of this 1930 aerial, this section between Keasley and Finley Streets. In the news article, I shared John H. Longstreet, the developer, was responsible for constructing the first structure in East York. That building was completed in 1904. It was a duplex and it included homes at 26 and 28 North Finley Streets. So this property here that is a duplex of 26 and 28, John H. Longstreet lived in 26. 28, he had his lawyer living there. I wasn't expecting, I got contacted by Janet. She didn't want me to share her last name, but okay. But she had a neat story. She said she recalled tales her mother shared about families living at the house at 2001 East Market Street. So she had stories about this home here that she shared, and I thought they were interesting. So this home right here, she shared that Murray Ream, who operated a roofing company, purchased a lot and had the house built. The Ream family lived there for about 6 years before selling it to Stuart Lauer, about the time this photo was taken. He was then general sales manager of York Ice Machinery Corporation's entry into the emerging air conditioning markets. However, Stewart and his wife Ellen were also very active in civic activities both in East York and in the city. By 1940, Stuart Lauer was president of York Corporation. So that's where the president of York Corporation lived. However, for a short time in the 1950s, many in the East York neighborhood did not look too kindly on Stuart Lauer or his new wife, Mary Jane, whom he married 2 years after his first wife passed away. Mary, being much younger than Stuart, may have contributed to the reaction from the neighborhood. However, Mary Lauer soon won the neighborhood over and continued living in the house at least a decade after Stuart Lauer passed away. Now we'll look at the Longstreet house. So this is where John H. Longstreet lived at 26 North Finley Street, in the south side of the duplex he constructed in 1904. Like I said, the north side was initially provided free of use for his York attorney, Nevin Wanner, who was a local lawyer representing Longstreet's Pennsylvania real estate company. He also represented the Pennsylvania Railroad in York County, the National Central Railroad in York County. Nevin actually had a 33-year career as a lawyer before he was elected to serve 20 years as a judge in the York County Court of Common Pleas. So you have, like I said, you have a couple of judges living in East York also. That's where one of them lived, provided by his friend John H. Longstreet. This is Rockburn and Philadelphia Street intersection in 1930. This view, like I said, on the north side of this intersection are 2 of the 8 structures built in East York prior to 1920. The combined lots where these 2 large houses sit were obtained by 2 different methods. One method was locating several adjacent empty lots where owners were willing to sell. In 1917, Charles Tucker acquired 4 such lots, 2 from Laura Shivers, who acquired her 2 lots in 1903, 1 from Prudence Morningstar, who acquired her lot in 1911, and 1 from Charles Sprinkle, who acquired his lot in 1909. So with those 4 lots, Charles Tucker residence at 105 North Rockburn Street was completed in 1919. So that's how he ended up building this particular house here. On this corner, that was acquired a different way. That was acquired by getting to Longstreet early, so he had a choice of lots. And that was actually acquired before Longstreet had not laid out any lots on that land. You have Malin Haynes saying, I want a lot this size. And he said, and evidently that the promise to build a house right away favored Longstreet, so he actually got to get it at a discount. He probably didn't need to do that, but. So Malin Haynes, like I said, he acted very early. He got that big lot that he wanted. And he built this house at 102 North Rockburn Streets. A view of the house from that intersection is shown here when Malin Haynes was running for Congress in 1922. The barn style, the prairie style barn type house was, like I said, designed by John A. Dempworth Architects. I don't know if it was directly Dempworth, but one of his architects designed this. It was completed in the spring of 1913. This is supposedly the 4th house built in East York. After Malin Haynes lost the election in 1922, 1923, after a decade in East York, Malin Haynes moved his family to his newly built house in the Haynes Acres farm. Now, human bones were dug up on at least 3 occasions while constructing buildings within the East York development. A 1927 newspaper article reported, it is said the land on which these bodies have been found was a burial ground nearly a century ago. Shown is the coroner's filing upon inspecting the bones in the 1927 site. On June 24, 1927, the bones from 3 human bodies were unearthed while digging the basement for a house at 15 North Harlan Street. In addition, the York Dispatch article reported human bones were also found nearby 3 years earlier, that is in 1924. The coroner instructed the contractor to place all human bones in a box, and arrangements were made with a funeral director. The coroner issued the necessary papers for the burial of those bones in a local cemetery. I still haven't found where the cemetery was or who the funeral home was. I'm still trying to find that out. Later, longtime East York resident, Mrs. Arlene Dietz Imes, shared of a third instance when the Vernmar apartments were being built, recalling human bones and some skulls were unearthed when they were digging to build the Vernmar apartment building at the northeast corner of Vernon and Market Streets, which was commenced building in 1936. So where are all these properties located? Well, the 15 North Harlan Street property is here. The northeast side of the Vernmar apartments would be in this area. So somewhere underneath North Harlan Street in this area, there was a cemetery. And in going into the early history of that property, early Spangler family settlers and their nearby neighbors were burying their dead there from the mid-1700s until the early 1800s. Now, in terms of landmarks, like I said, it was in that area of North Harlan Street. The burial ground was established by Caspar Spangler, who settled 385 acres in this area during 1729. Caspar died in 1760 and was likely among the earliest buried in the graveyard on his property. Based upon an 1896 Edward Spangler family history and property deeds, it appears the removal of all gravestones at that burial ground occurred in the late 1800s under the Vincent Kesey ownership, or possibly by the farmer he had employed to farm that land. That happened a lot, and that was actually happened a lot up into the mid-1950s when farmers would remove the gravestones so they have a better area to farm, and they put the gravestones in the fence row and forget about them. So that's probably what happened here. So they were long gone by the time the East York development was built. But like I said, finding the bones on 3 occasions, you can pretty much pinpoint where that grave was located, the graveyard. So this is the extent of the East York development in 1938, which is the earliest year available to have an aerial photo like this. So you see the roads, Vernon Street and Harlan Street were the roads south of East Market Street that started to get development first, and they were extending them to the boundary of East York and future Fayfield. So like I said, this fence row is the boundary, lower boundary of East York. So they were extending the roads down to this in 1938. This field here that became the future Fayfield, let's look at some early activities in that field. One of the biggest events was when the Goodyear blimp arrived in that field. So on June 30th, 1930, a Goodyear blimp named Mayflower, which had made its maiden flight only a few months earlier, landed in the field. The free attraction was sponsored by the York Flying Service Incorporated, a group of 5 York individuals who were leasing a 40-acre field on Joe Kindig's property to provide flying instruction and to offer airplane rides to passengers for a penny a pound. The event was well attended by local residents, among them members of the York Chamber of Commerce. Now, the York Flying Service had been incorporated in April of 1930 and had created a successful business. However, on August 18, 1930, the York Chamber of Commerce, via the creation of the York Airport Company Incorporated, bought the 40 acres that the York Flying Service was leasing, plus more acreage from Joe Kindig. On those 157 acres, the first commercial York airport was established, with regularly scheduled passenger flights. Now, the first commercial airport operated from the first commercial airport in York, the York Airport, operated from 1930 to 1937 on turf landing fields adjacent to the west side of present Haynes Road, then known as Airport Road. At that time, if one traveled south on Haynes Road and looked off to the right between present 7th and 9th Avenues, one would see the pictured airport buildings as shown in this detailed scale model. The airport office building at the right side contained ticket offices, operation offices for the York Airport, and offices for the initial airport operator, Pittsburgh Airways, plus a passenger waiting area and a restaurant. Scheduled passenger service commenced at the York Airport on October 15, 1930, and the official dedication of the facilities took place on October 25th and 26th, 1930. Now, this 1931 photo shows a regularly scheduled single-engine travel airplane at the passenger loading area next to the backside of the York Airport office building. Flights to Philadelphia and New York left daily at 4 o'clock, with a 55-minute flight to Philadelphia costing $8 and a 1 hour and 45-minute flight to New York costing $14.40. A flight to Pittsburgh left daily at 11 a.m. It cost $16.20 for the 2-hour flight. Besides the pilot, the plane held 5 passengers with weight limits on baggage and freight, depending upon the number and weight of the passengers. So you had to give your weight if you wanted to get on that plane. Now, there was a small airplane hangar on the property from earlier in 1930, built by the York Flying Service. However, after the York Chamber of Commerce organized the York Airport Incorporated, this much larger airplane hangar was constructed. The hangar featured a 120-foot wide door on the west side and was 80 feet deep. After Pittsburgh Airways went bankrupt, Atlantic Airways became the next airport operator. This photo includes one of the special use flight instruction airplanes used by Atlantic Airways. On November 4th, 1933, Amelia Earhart arrived at the York Airport, located along what is now Haynes Road. Probably the most famous visitor to visit the airport. Now, Amelia spoke that evening at York High about her 1932 solo flight across the Atlantic becoming the first woman and the second person to accomplish that feat. This photo shows her welcome after landing in Northern Ireland on that flight. So she was basically on a lecture circuit, and she spoke at 2 locations in West Virginia on the Thursday and Friday before speaking here. She was ferried in a plane to those locations, and newspapers at those locations reported on her landing. No local newspaper reported on her landing here, although they did report her on speaking at York High. So the one lady that provided some information said her grandmother was there at the time and met Amelia Earhart, and she's looking for a picture of that. She knew there are a couple people taking photos when Amelia landed, but none has surfaced yet. So if anybody has one of those, please provide me. I'll share it with her. Also at this location, the Great Depression was not a good time to be in the passenger airline business. In 1932, airline operators ceased using the York Airport to provide regularly scheduled flights. So that only occurred for 2 years, after which the local York Flying Service acquired the York Airport lease. Besides local pilots utilizing the airport, the York Flying Service rented space in the hangar and also subleased the airport office. In August of 1936, the Pennsylvania State Highway Patrol leased the airport office building as a base location from which they conducted driver's tests for the new York County drivers. They supposedly started there and ran through the hills either south of there or north of there, because they always like to have people stop on a hill and use the clutch to get back started. So it's like that was always it's like when my mom took her driver's test, she took it there, and they took her up through the hills where Suburban is. So they asked me to do it twice. I had to stop on the hill and then get going again. But also, this particular field, it was little used. So in 1937, in April and May, it was one of the sites selected to refine the development of a device which used a pair of tall masts equipped with lines permitting a grappling hook to lower a speeding airplane to pick up bundles of mail without landing. The man responsible for inventing this device, Lyle Adams, was the president of the Tri-State Aviation Corporation of West Virginia, Wheeling, West Virginia. He saw his airmail pickup system being accepted as the airmail system implemented by the U.S. Post Office in 1939. The test refining the airmail pickup system conducted in York was the last step in getting the system approved. This was the last major use of those turf landing strips since the airport closed in July of 1937. Upon the airport's closure, the hangar was disassembled and repurposed at the Piper Aircraft Airport in Lock Haven. The concrete floor of the hangar was broken up, and pieces of it can still occasionally be found when residents dig up in the area. So in July of 1937, the 48 investors in the York Airport Company Incorporated voted to turn the little-used airport into a real estate development. This is their proposed development plan for the whole airport property, plus an immediate plan for selling 50 lots along the west side of Airport Road, which became Haynes Road. The development did not have a name at this point, and it was 10 years later when construction of the initial roadways within the development actually got started underway. which is when the name Fayfield was selected. So they had this auction to sell the 50 lots. The auction of the 50 choice lots did not go that great. They only sold a handful, some say like 5, some say 6, so it's 5 or 6 lots they sold. And the total lot sales before and after World War II was only about 12 sites. So selling those lots did not go good, which is the reason why they didn't move forward with the development further back at that point. However, after World War II, the need for housing skyrocketed. So in 1947, you have this Gazette and Daily ad, this is graphic, proclaiming that May 24th, 1947, we announced the founding of Fayfield. The realty firm of Morgan, Zeller, and Phillips are the agents for the York Airport Company's sale of lots within the development. And in 1947, the plan was approved by the Planning Commission for the Fayfield development. While the graphic shows sidewalks, they were not required, and few exist in Fayfield. So if you drive south on any of the streets in East York, as soon as the sidewalks fade away, you know you're in Fayfield. So this July 4th, 1947 aerial photo shows grading work on Fayfield roadways underway. The 2nd, 3rd, and 5th Avenues extend west from the Haynes Road into the development. And the new development has Kershaw, Russell, and Royal Streets extending south from East York, unencumbered all the way into Fayfield. Now, I used this 1938 aerial photo as a base to annotate where the roadways existed and show which roadways were part of the airport. The yellow roadways there are where the airport was located. You can still see this is where the airport office building is. The hangar has already been removed and shipped up to Lock Haven, to Piper Aircraft. So on 7th Avenue and Haynes Road is where the York Airport hangar was, and that's the oldest building in Fayfield. Now, these dotted lines here represent a point of view of the next aerial photo. So it was taken over here looking in this direction. So that aerial photo was taken April 9th of 1949 as construction was started on Fayfield. So this particular photo, this 1941 bird's eye view, was done by the Gazette and Daily. It gives an indication of the progress of building in the Fayfield development. Nearly 2 years since the development commenced, it was reported 173 of the 415 building lots were sold and 34 houses were built. I've annotated the street names on this eastward-looking aerial photo so you know about where your house might be if you're in that development. Now, I've zoomed in on this particular house up here. So, right there. That's the former airport office, which is now 710 Haynes Road. What they did, it was a flat roof on the original office. They put a gable end, sloped end on it, and they had gable ends on the front and back. So that's the back end of it, and this is the current front end of it. So that's the oldest building in Fayfield, and that was the former airport office building. Anybody live in that here? Guess not. Green Acres. Okay. What is Green Acres? It's the place to be. Green Acres is the place to be. Farming is it was a TV show. So, how many remember Green Acres TV show? Okay, that was on in the 1965 and the 1971, but it's in reruns. So you had Lisa and Oliver Douglas bookending their neighbors, Fred and Doris Ziffel and their pet pig, Arnold. And in the back you have their farmhand, Ed. But there's also a Green Acres in Springettsbury. So the Green Acres development, not many know about it because mainly because of I-83 took up most of it. So here, this Green Acres development in Springettsbury was planned in 1953 on 41 acres at the northwest corner of Haynes Road and Mount Rose Avenue. The northern boundary line with the neighboring Fayfield development is the small stream that flows westward from Haynes Acres into Mill Creek. In 1951, C. William Trout and his wife Charlotte acquired the former Kindig horse ranch in the area. The 41-acre Green Acres site was part of that 109-acre ranch, but it was the only amount that was north of Mount Rose Avenue. So they decided to do something with it, and that was develop it. Dougherty and Smizer, registered engineers, were retained by Springettsbury Township in 1954 to draw a scale, street, and road map of the township. Actual surveys, aerial photos, and plans of approved developments were utilized to create the map. This section of that map focuses on the Green Acres development. My annotations in blue and yellow are to help with orientation. I added the yellow dashed lines per the mites and bounds of the 41-acre property. So the 41-acre property they were trying to develop is bounded by this and this dividing line with Fayfield and Haynes Road and Mount Rose Avenue. The rest of the farm that Kindig had is actually located in this area here. Now, in addition to the approved development plan, was proposed to extend Vernon Street and connect it with Washington Road at Gary Road. This never happened. Again, I-83 coming through the area prevented it. Washington Road loops around in Green Acres to connect with Camp Betty Washington Road. So that's the reason it was Washington Road, because it was connecting with Camp Betty Washington Road, who at the time, 1954, so Camp Betty Washington Road is here. It doesn't connect with Haynes Road at that time. So it's here. So that is moved to this location when I-83 comes through. So that's the reason why it's called Washington Road. They could have just said Camp Betty Washington Road, but he wanted to keep it simple, I guess. Paul Smith, no relation, was the initial Green Acres builder. He started work on Green Acres in the fall of 1953. He cut in Washington Road from Haynes Road and started building South Royal Street, heading north to align with South Royal Street and Fayfield. The first houses were built at 977 and 978 South Royal Street near Washington Road. Now, in January of 1954, open houses were held at two new Green Acres homes along South Royal Street. One was known as the Trade Secrets House, as featured in Life magazine, and the Yorker. Now, the Trade Secrets House in Green Acres, it was not actually featured in Life magazine. It was of the style of home featured in the magazine the previous year. In that issue, it was stated the Trade Secrets House was not a house of the Mara, but a practical, easy-to-build upscale house. The National Association of Home Builders utilized noted architects to create house plans by taking ideas and methods from their members across the country. The Life magazine article noted that no single feature is new, and no house ever built has incorporated so many advanced methods that have been tried and proven. So one of those houses is a trade secrets house. Now, the extent of development of Green Acres is shown in this October 9th, 1955 aerial photo, with most of the 16 homes built along South Royal Street, and South Russell Street is cut in to allow building to continue. So they built on the South Royal Street first, and then they're building on this next. However, 1 year later, in 1956, you have this particular area is being looked at for potentially placing the new location of I-83. Now, originally, I-83 was planned to go through the city of York. It was going to come down along the where the Arsenal Road interchange is, and then skirt the west side of Cadorus Creek all through the city until you got down to Tyler Run. Then it was going up to Tyler Runs and connect with the spur that came into the hospital. So that was going to be the original location, but there was so much flack from the city about taking the road through the city. They didn't want people coming in the city, so they decided to take it around the east side of York. And that decision was made in 1956. So 1956, they were taking these aerial photo plans and sketching on the proposed route of that 4-lane divided highway. Once that happened, the developer of Green Acres felt, and it was also noted that this would be an interchange, so he felt that he would make more money by selling his land as commercial space. So that's the reason it stopped development in that area. So right now in East York, it includes 37 residential addresses, and many of the newer structures along Haynes Road and Washington Road are built as duplexes. You still have the name Green Acres showing up on ADC maps, on maps on the internet. You see it here, Green Acres in small letters, but it still shows up. So it's still considered a community, a neighborhood, but it's very few houses in there. So this is a westward view in May 5th, 1956, 1 year before development starts of constructing I-83 through this area. So you still see Mill Creek going across here. You have the East York development of 1903. You have the Fayfield development of 1947, and you have the Green Acres of 1953. 1 year after Green Acres started, you have Haynes Acres development started. So the first section of Haynes Acres was built between 1954 and 1956. You see the houses much closer than they are in Fayfield, at least in this part of Haynes Acres. So hope you enjoyed the talk. If you have any questions, I'll entertain them now, or you can come up here after the talk. So hope you enjoyed it. Yes?